Today, we're talking about something huge. India just replaced a law that's been around for 150 years, a law that was basically the foundation of its entire justice system. Let's get into it. So think about it for a second. What actually happens when a law from the 1800s has to deal with our world, the world of the 21st century? I mean, you've got this old rule book written for paper and maybe telegraphs, and it's suddenly trying to figure out things like server logs, encrypted messages, all the digital stuff we live with. Well, in 2024, India decided it was time to stop just patching things up. They decided to replace it. The old Indian Evidence Act from 1872 is out, and the new Bharatiya Sakshya Adhiniyam, or BSA for short, is in. So the big question is, why now? What was the reason for such a massive change? All right, so let's break down why this happened, and really it boils down to two big reasons. This wasn't just a tech upgrade. It was also about, updating an identity. So on one side, you have this big push to decolonize. The idea was to finally shed these old laws that were written by the British and create something that's, truly Indian. But then there's the other side, which was maybe even more urgent, just simple modernization. The old law just couldn't handle the digital world. I mean, think about it. You can only patch up a 150-year-old system so many times before you realize you just need to start fresh. And you know what's crazy? This whole thing happened fast. Like, really fast. The bill was introduced in August 2023. It went through committee review, got the president's sign-off by December, and boom, it was the law of the land by July 1st, 2024. For a law this fundamental, a law that's the bedrock of the entire justice system, that's moving at lightning speed. Okay, so let's talk about what is probably the single biggest, most important change in this whole thing. This is the part that affects pretty much everybody, and it's all about how the new law handles digital information. This is where it gets really interesting. They've completely redefined a basic concept. You know the word document. For most of us, that means a piece of paper. Not anymore. Under this new BSA, an electronic record is now officially a document. And we're talking about everything. Your emails, server logs, the data on your smartphone, texts, website info, all of it. And that one seemingly small change, it sends ripples through the entire justice system. Suddenly, you can digitize everything. From the very first step, filing a police complaint, which is called an FIR, all the way to filing charge sheets and even delivering the final court judgment. It's all going electronic. So here's the bottom line. Digital evidence isn't some special, separate thing anymore. It's not second-class evidence. It now has the exact same legal power, the same validity as a physical piece of paper. This is what brings the whole system kicking and screaming into the 21st century. But it's not just about the digital stuff. I mean, that's a huge part of it, for sure. But the new law also brings in a bunch of other important changes, both in how it's structured and how things work in practice. And these are definitely things you should know about. So let's do a quick side-by-side. The new BSA is a little bigger, 170 sections versus the old 167. It's also been restructured, now it has 4 parts instead of 3. And this is a big one. It represents a huge shift in authorship. We're going from a law written by one British guy, Sir James Stephen, to a law drafted by an Indian committee, headed up by Dr. Ranbir Singh. Now, all of this brings us to a really fundamental idea in any evidence law, whether it's the old one or this new one. You have to remember, courts are just swamped with cases. They simply don't have time to hear every single tiny detail about everything. So they have to focus on what actually matters. And that one thing is relevant facts. And this example is just perfect for explaining what that means. Let's say we're in a trial about a theft. Showing the court CCTV footage of the suspect walking into the room right before the item disappeared? Yeah, that's super relevant. But telling the judge, oh, that night I ate Maggi, but my brother wanted to order pizza. Completely irrelevant. The whole point of an evidence law, this one included, is to act like a filter, to get rid of all that noise and focus only on the stuff that actually helps prove or disprove the case. And the modernizing didn't stop there. They made some other really key changes. For example, and this is a big deal, spouses can now be required to testify against each other in criminal cases. That's a huge departure from the old way. They also expanded the rules for what counts as secondary evidence, things like photocopies or digital printouts. And finally, they just did a big cleanup. All that old, outdated language about things like telegraphs or jury systems, which India doesn't even use anymore, it's all gone, just swept away. And this right here, this really brings that whole decolonization idea home. The new law literally scrubs out all the old colonial terms. Things like the Queen, Her Majesty, even the London Gazette, they've been wiped clean from the law books. It's a symbolic but really powerful change. So, okay, we've talked about all of these changes, but what kind of law is this exactly? Where does it fit in the grand scheme of the legal world? Well, legal experts have a specific name for it. They call it an adjective law. Now, that sounds a little academic, I know, but the concept is actually pretty simple. Think of it like this. You have one set of laws that defines your rights and says what's illegal, like stealing is a crime. That's called substantive law. Then you have another set of rules for how a court trial actually runs. That's procedural law. This new evidence law, it's the bridge that connects the two. It's the how-to manual for proving in court that the theft actually happened. So when you boil it all down, that's what this new law is. The Bharatiya Sakshya Adhiniyam is the brand new official rule book that governs how truth is proven in every single courtroom across India. It sets the rules of the game, what evidence gets in, how you show it, and who gets to talk. And that kind of leaves us with one last question to think about. This new law is, without a doubt, a huge step forward. But the world of evidence, especially with technology, is changing constantly. So, is this new BSA the final, complete rulebook? Is it the last word on the subject, or is it just the beginning of the next chapter in this ongoing story of law trying to keep up with technology? Honestly, only time and the courts will be able to answer that.